request that we feel was unreasonable and cold-hearted. Essentially, the movie has been taken unjustly from Justin as director and essentially from Wayfarer's control due to the extortion of Blake Lively. This is truly insanity. Words from Sony. Sony's in agreement. She did it to herself. Epic level stupid what she did.
Blake Lively believed this letter would protect her. Instead, it unraveled her entire case. The unsealed PGA letter was intended to show she had been mistreated and powerless, but it appears to do the opposite. She wrote it herself, signed it herself, and submitted it intentionally. No leaks, no media spin, just her own words. And those words outline control over everything. So which version is true, the story of a victim or the story of control? Hollywood took notice. And the fallout was immediate.
Without the official title of producer, my hands were tied. I couldn't apply when I wanted to. No crew could tick me in the box of producers who could receive the tag. When pulled, I'm pleading now because I'm confident with all of my soul that if you saw what I did on this film, you would agree that this mark is without question deserved.
The letter is remarkable not simply because it exists, but because of what it contains. A woman who publicly portrayed herself as sidelined, mistreated, and deprived of authority somehow detailed extensive control over development, casting, script rewrites, production design, scheduling, post-production, marketing strategy, and even distribution coordination.
I just can't believe the hubris and ego of this woman to think she could get away with this when she wrote specifically this letter to the Producers Guild of America.
By her own telling, she was involved in everything at every stage all the time, which raises an obvious question. How does someone claiming to have no power end up overseeing every department on a studio film? This is where the narrative begins to unravel. People who are truly sidelined don't submit documents highlighting sweeping operational control. Those pushed aside don't describe daily decision-making authority across an entire production pipeline. And someone allegedly ignored doesn't position herself as the final word on creative, logistical, and marketing outcomes. The contradiction isn't subtle, it's complete.
We have agreed to write this letter due to feeling trapped. She continues to hold a threat over our heads every time we try and hold a line. She uses that threat, either indirectly or directly, to get us to fold.
What makes this even more damaging is the timing. This letter is no longer a piece of public relations, it's evidence. Once it was unsealed, it stopped being narrative and became an exhibit. Every statement can now be measured against testimony, contracts, emails, and depositions. Every overstatement invites scrutiny. Every bold claim carries potential consequences, and the question that lingers is unavoidable. Who believed submitting this was a smart move?
I think this is Ange writing back, and Sanford's like, no, disagree. She's done for, at least for a while. It's cooked. She said she's retiring to Josh or something. It will take a few years, Eva Mendes time. She did it to herself.
Then there's Sony, not the polished public statements, but the private exchanges. Internal texts and emails tell a very different story from the abuse narrative presented externally. Executives didn't sound intimidated. They sounded shocked. The word insane appears more than once. Disbelief is everywhere. The dominant tone wasn't fear. It was astonishment that they had conceded at all.
She did it to herself. If she just let him come to the premiere or didn't make all the cast and follow him or kick him off the movie and did what everyone else has done in the show business for time immemorial, which is protect the show, then none of the sleuthing would have happened. The hair sell at the same time was epic level stupid. She wouldn't listen. She knows better. Astonishing 150. Anyway.
That detail matters. Companies don't mock people who truly hold power over them. They don't ridicule alleged abusers behind closed doors or privately question concessions made out of fear. That kind of language surfaces when executives feel pressured, frustrated, and boxed in by optics rather than convinced by facts. Sony didn't surrender control of the situation. They tolerated it.
Even Sony, Sanford Pranach admits here, I can't believe they caved on the producer credit for her. This is Sony admitting it in private. I can't believe it. She wants to change credits, all the order of production, her second position, moving to Jamie's. She wants to move the order of production of producers now. And Sony's just ridiculous. This is crazy.
And that leads to the most damaging line of all. During active litigation, I did everything. That isn't a defense, it reads like an admission. By asserting control over development, production, post-production, and marketing, she undercut any claim of being sidelined or powerless. Instead of appearing as an exploited participant, she cast herself as a central authority figure.
But here we go. Here's what she did, guys. Here's what she's admitting she did. Development, pre-production, I led the location shift. I identified onboard freelance team members. I reviewed, reshaped the creative and production design for all key locations, for all characters, made changes to use existing elements. I called in favors with home design guides, reshaped creatives. I reshaped the creative prop and floral design. I outreached to florists on Instagram. I went through hundreds of casting tapes to help find the cast.
At different points, she portrays herself as a creative lead, a logistical coordinator, a casting voice, a marketing decision-maker, and even a mediator for personnel disputes. That raises a fundamental question. What was her actual role supposed to be? Actor, producer, studio executive, human resources, crisis manager. It cannot be all of them at once, unless the narrative of a power imbalance was never as clear-cut as it was presented.
No one asked you to. Sony didn't want you to. Nobody did. In fact, Justin's version tested better. It did, and you said you didn't care. So, but we're supposed to boo-hoo. And it just keeps going. How she worked with all her editors. Look at this. And then it's not done. She also was in charge of marketing.
This matters in a legal context. Courts don't deal in impressions. They deal in authority and accountability. If you exercise control, you assume responsibility for the results. If you direct decisions, you own the consequences. By her own account, she appears to assign that responsibility to herself, clearly, and with dates attached.
Made changes to use existing elements. I called in favors with home design guides, reshaped creatives. I reshaped the creative prop and floral design. I outreached to florists on Instagram. I went through hundreds of casting tapes to help find the cast, and apparently including all of them. I rewrote the script to improve on the role of Jenny Bloom after 3 actors turned it down. I personally identified and put forth this actress. I worked with my agents. This is just pre-production. This is before the movie's even begun. I rewrote the script more.
Now consider the PGA credit. The Producers Guild of America mark isn't a vanity label. It's a certification that a producer performed meaningful, hands-on work. It carries real weight, influencing awards eligibility and professional standing. That's precisely why a formal review process exists, and why last-minute pressure runs against industry norms. Several producers submitted public letters backing her, while privately describing feelings of being cornered or pressured. That's not a straightforward endorsement. It suggests discomfort behind the scenes. When public support is paired with private messages referencing coercion, the language shifts. Recognition no longer fits. A more accurate word would be compelled.
That's all before production. And then she continues. I broke the scheduled budget. I did this. I helped block. I blocked. I rewrote. I managed the politics and HR concerns on a daily basis, acting as an intermediary to keep crew and cast engaged, safe, and on board. So she was head of HR! She's admitting it! Like, what?
Sony recognized the risk immediately. Misrepresenting information to the PGA carries the threat of revocation. Revocation carries the risk of reputational harm. Reputational harm triggers scrutiny of every other aspect of the project. That paper trail, not Justin, not press coverage, is what truly alarmed them. Once those documents surfaced, the panic wasn't about optics, it was about exposure. That's when control slipped. The strategy failed. Silence no longer sufficed. Messaging crumbled. The gap between narrative and record became impossible to conceal. Every attempt at spin now collides with sworn statements and internal communications. This is no longer a battle over public perception. It is a problem of documentation, and documentation does not forget, sympathize, or bend. It simply waits for courtrooms, timelines, and consequences to catch up. That outcome is now inevitable, procedural, measurable, and detached from emotion, star power, reputation management, or carefully curated celebrity personas.
So she was head of HR! She's admitting it! Like, what? I shot this with the director DP first day, and not usually all at once, but when not just when it was asked for. On round 2 of the film, we shot half. I would speak to our first AD every day for nearly an hour on my drive home.
She didn't just claim influence over the film. She inadvertently admitted to running marketing as well. In her own letter, she detailed directing trailers, approving copy, setting packing, selecting color palettes, shaping fonts, and steering international rollout decisions. That isn't collaboration. That's control. At that point, it's fair to ask, why did Sony's marketing department even exist? What were they doing if she was dictating how the film looked, sounded, and communicated to audiences?
Poor guy. I was the director's partner in all creative and logistic. I was the director's partner in all creative and logistic concerns, helping to execute the best outcome for the film. Were you asked to do that, or you just forced yourself to do that? I would push back when needed. I would support when needed. The film and was always my top priority. Your version of the film was the top priority.
This admission is crucial because it undercuts any later attempts at blame shifting. You can't claim the studio botched marketing while simultaneously asserting that you personally oversaw every decision. You can't criticize rollout choices while listing yourself as the architect. Those positions simply cannot coexist. Sony's subsequent silence wasn't an endorsement. It was calculated. Speaking would have meant confirming what the paper trail already revealed. Silence was the safest move. Then there's the ego factor. She couldn't hide it. The letter is long, dense, repetitive, and entirely self-focused. It reads less like a formal submission and more like a personal manifesto of importance. Page after page emphasizes effort, sacrifice, indispensability, and a singular vision. This is not how someone confident in their defense writes. This is how someone pleads while insisting they're not.
I would push back when needed. I would support when needed. The film and was always my top priority. Your version of the film was the top priority. I led hiring a new intimacy coordinator and doubles to help block the scenes. My God, it keeps going. And then I can't even read it all, guys. Then she goes into post. I spent a minimum of 10 hours a day every day since April on this film.
People who trust the process don't write manifestos. People who trust their record let others make the case. This letter does the opposite. It overexplains, it overwhelms, it assists. The underlying message is clear. She believed her identity alone should settle the matter. And now, that belief is documented in writing. This is where entitlement shifts from accusation to evidence. No one forced the tone. No one manipulated it. It was written exactly as intended, and it now exists in the record, unshielded by publicists or spin. The industry didn't turn on her. She turned on herself. No secret leak was necessary. No adversary needed to twist context. She submitted this letter voluntarily. She signed it. She asked for it to be considered. The idea that this is cancel culture falls apart under the facts. Cancellation implies outside pressure. This was self-submission.
If by chance you're like, oh my God, if I could go 2 weeks earlier, that would actually be great, then amazing. Selfishly, what I would love about that is that, Ryan and I have also been really stressed about spending a month apart. The most we've ever done is less than 2 weeks. I was talking to Ryan and I was like, I don't know if we should share this, but he was like, you guys have such a great trust.
The more telling question is, who did she think would never read it? Studios review everything. Guilds archive everything. Lawyers scrutinize everything. There is no safe assumption that words vanish once they're sent. That assumption is what ultimately betrayed her.
Defining note, if you will, a confirmation from the producers union to sort of say, yes, we confirm you actually have done this work. And it also, I think, allows you to get into more award contention, etc. But from everything I've talked to, my experts and people who are really in the industry who know about it day to day, it's basically just a big country club.
Sony understands this better than anyone, which is why they'll let her lose quietly. They've already created private distance. Internal communications reveal disbelief, frustration, and concern over exposure. There's no incentive to defend her now. Loyalty doesn't survive legal risk. Studios protect brands, not individuals. Once the risk shifts, attachment ends. Backing her publicly would mean taking on her paper trail. It would mean defending statements that contradict sworn testimony. It would mean justifying why they allowed a situation they privately ridiculed. That isn't happening. So Sony will do what studios always do. Speak as little as possible, as neutrally as possible, and let the process play out. This isn't punishment, it's risk management. When the cost of defending exceeds the cost of distancing, distance always wins.
That evidence is now in the record, and at trial, that evidence will be presented.
Okay, cool. So nice talking to you. Not talking to you. This is so sad. This is my social interaction these days, just talking into voice memos.
And here's the ultimate reality check. This is no longer about feelings. Courts don't weigh vibes, they weigh documents. Evidence always outweighs emotion. Her own words undercut her lawsuit. This isn't interpretation, it's direct comparison. She claimed authority while alleging powerlessness. She detailed control while asserting marginalization. She documented decision-making while arguing exclusion. These contradictions aren't rhetorical, they're measurable. Sony didn't expose her. The media didn't fabricate it. Opposing counsel didn't invent it. She wrote it, submitted it, and preserved it. Once unsealed, it stopped being her story, it became the record. Perhaps the most striking part is her calm tone while asserting total control. She catalogs meetings, hires, rewrites, marketing calls, and approvals like a resume for running a studio, then asks courts to believe she had no leverage. How does that make sense when her own letter positions her in charge of everything? It seems she assumed prestige would shield her from scrutiny, an assumption that collapsed the moment the letter became evidence. Studios read documents, not vibes. Lawyers read them even more closely. Her letter hands Sony and the court a clear map of authority. It explains why executives rolled their eyes in private messages. That is likely why the defense shifted from explanation to silence. Silence is safer when your own words have already done the talking. She wasn't exposed by rivals or tabloids. She delivered the proof herself and asked powerful people to review it. That's the moment Hollywood stopped defending and began stepping back. Once the paper trail exists, loyalty evaporates. This case now lives in ink, timestamps, and signatures. Feelings don't survive that environment. Her letter ensured that permanently. Outrage, sympathy, reputation management, all irrelevant. What matters is consistency, and that consistency is gone. This case now exists on paper, and paper doesn't care who you are.